On July 23, 2007, 48-year-old Jennifer Hawk Petit and her daughters, 17-year-old Haley and 11-year-old Michaela, were burned alive during a calculated cold-blooded home invasion. Dr. William Petit, husband to Jennifer and father to Haley and Michaela, heard much of what happened to them. In fact, he was the first victim of the attack and was tied up in the basement while two assailants destroyed his family in earshot. Today we're going to unpack the story of perhaps the most horrific crime ever to occur in Connecticut. A crime so savage that it affected legislation and criminal justice police in the state for decades. First, we must understand the family that was so brutally annihilated. William Petit, known to his friends as Bill, had always wanted to be a doctor. However, he had no idea just how many aspects of his life would be determined by this career choice. He spent much of his residency at UPMC Children's Hospital in Pittsburgh, where he met a beautiful oncology nurse named Jennifer Hawk. Sparks flew almost as soon as they met. They could tell that there was something special between them. It's possible that Bill loved how gentle Jennifer was, and how generous. Being an oncology nurse is one of the most emotionally taxing jobs out there, yet Jennifer always seemed to have a smile on her face. Their love blossomed, and shortly after Bill completed his residency in 1985, they got married. Now the Petits weren't the kind of folks that wanted to endure city life. They liked their peace and quiet, and Cheshire, Connecticut, offered exactly that. This quaint New England town, with its tree-lined streets and a population of just under 30,000, was the perfect backdrop for their growing family. It was a town where everyone knew each other, where crime was rare, and where children could play outside without fear. For Bill and Jennifer, Cheshire represented safety, community, and the ideal place to raise their children. Their first daughter, Haley Elizabeth Petit, was born in 1990. From the beginning, Haley showed exceptional promise. Athletic and intelligent, she excelled in school and sports, becoming captain of the Cheshire High School cross-country team, and developing a reputation as a kind-hearted and strong team leader. But she wasn't just trying to win medals. Beyond her accomplishments, Haley had a generous heart and a strong sense of purpose, which was something that she no doubt inherited from her mother. However, it wasn't all smooth sailing for the Petits. By the mid-90s, Bill and Jennifer had been married for about a decade. Their daughter Haley was a vivacious and confident little girl, and they probably saw all sorts of great things in her future. But unfortunately, the good times weren't going to last forever. A sudden and shocking diagnosis threatened to derail everything the Petties had worked towards. It's possible that Jennifer had started to experience blurred vision or that she had some trouble walking. Bill, a highly experienced endocrinologist by this point, may have had an inkling of what was happening to his wife. But even so, when they went to the doctor one day and found out that Jennifer had multiple sclerosis, the life-changing revelation must have shocked them to their very core. It may even have changed their entire dynamic, but it did nothing to alter the love they felt in their hearts for each other and for their daughter. Haley may have been too young to fully understand what her mother was going through, but she slowly came to terms with it as she grew older. Inspired by her mother's diagnosis with multiple sclerosis, she founded Haley's Hope, a non-profit dedicated to supporting MS research. Her dream was to attend Dartmouth College in the fall of 2007, with aspirations of pursuing a career in medicine. It's possible that she felt this way firstly, because both her parents worked in the field, but also potentially because she wanted to be the sort of person that could heal her mother. Despite the massive shock they must have received, the Petits continued to soldier on. 7 years after Haley, Bill and Jennifer welcomed Michaela Rose, lovingly nicknamed KK. Michaela was the creative soul of the family, with a passion for cooking that blossomed at an early age. She adored spending time in the kitchen, often experimenting with recipes alongside her mother and learning from shows on the Food Network that she'd watch with her whole family. Her dream was to continue her sister's charitable efforts, renaming the nonprofit Michaela's Miracle, which hinted at the sharp, sassy wit that everyone loved her for. At just 11 years old, Michaela also radiated an innocence and warmth that brought joy to everyone who knew her. Jennifer, the family matriarch, was the glue that held them together. After years as an oncology nurse, she transitioned to a role as the health director at a local boarding school, where she continued to touch lives with her compassion and dedication. Despite her own health challenges, Jennifer remained a pillar of strength and optimism, always putting her family first. Bill Petit was a devoted husband and father. He worked tirelessly to provide for his family, but never let his demanding career overshadow his role at home. He was known for his love of golf, his quiet humor, and his deep connection to his wife and daughters. Together, the Petits embodied the ideal of a loving, supportive family. But even in the safest towns, evil can lurk in the shadows. Unbeknownst to the Petits, their lives were being observed by two men who would shatter their world forever. By the way, I post true crime and new cases here every day. So if that sounds like your kind of thing, please consider subscribing. It helps a lot. Joshua Komisarjevsky and Stephen Hayes weren't strangers to crime by any stretch of imagination. Both were career criminals, with extensive histories of burglary, theft, and drug abuse, and they'd both served considerably long stints in jail. They had met earlier that year at a halfway house after being released on parole, and what began as a casual acquaintance quickly turned into a dangerous partnership. Joshua Komisarjevsky, born in 1980, came from a deeply religious family, but it wasn't a family he was born into. You see, he was adopted as an infant, something that might have given him a deep sense of insecurity. By all accounts, Komisarjevsky never met his birth parents, and it's hard to imagine the kind of psychological toll this took. If the crimes he committed are anything to go by, his upbringing may have stripped him of his humanity, or at the very least his basic sense of empathy. But the fact that he was adopted wasn't the only thing that sent him hurtling towards a violent, depraved life. Komisarjevsky's childhood was also marked by some of the worst trauma and abuse you can imagine. A fellow foster child allegedly abused him when he was quite young, and his adoptive parents did nothing to stop it. Their solution to everything seemed to be to pray for everything, even if the right course of action was to do something more decisive. Now, Joshua was adopted, and yesterday we heard the defense talk about how he was abused by a foster brother and how the devout Christian Komisarjevsky family decided to try to pray away Joshua's obvious mental illnesses instead of getting him therapy. Despite his parents' strict faith, Joshua exhibited troubling behavior from a young age. He was manipulative, often playing the victim to escape accountability. By his late teens, he had developed a disturbing obsession with home invasions, a crime he had committed multiple times before. His pattern was chilling. He would break into homes at night, and after he was done stealing any valuables he came across, he would sit there, watching families sleep. It's possible that he was savoring their vulnerability. Perhaps he even imagined killing them in their sleep. Either way, he was caught in the early 2000s and was sentenced to 9 years in prison. He was up for parole in 4, but someone with his kind of violent tendencies should have had his parole application thrown out in a heartbeat. But the thing is, the parole board didn't have all the facts about him. There were documents missing from his file, and as a result, he was released in April of 2007. Stephen Hayes, born in 1963, had a different but equally troubling background. Raised in Florida, he exhibited sociopathic tendencies early on, which was something that made even his own brothers fear him a little. Much like his future partner in crime, Komisarjevsky, Hayes was a habitual offender, cycling in and out of prison for various crimes. By the time he met Komisarjevsky, he was desperate for money and a purpose, and the younger man's cunning provided both. It was a fateful moment when they met at that halfway house. They seemed to recognize each other as kindred spirits. The horrific things they'd do later on indicate that they were very in sync with each other, at least as far as violence was concerned. Together, Komisarjevsky and Hayes plotted their next big score. They wanted money, and were more than willing to leave a trail of destruction to get it. Their shared love for violence and lack of empathy made them a dangerous duo. Komisarjevsky would later claim that he made sure the girls were comfortable while he guarded them, but it turned out that he had truly sick reasons for staying behind. While Jennifer and Hayes were at the bank, he assaulted Michaela and reportedly took pictures of her afterwards. These pictures were later shown in court and were part of the reason why the jurors needed therapy after the trial concluded.
Like she wasn't like resisting or anything, so I just kept it.
The police had started to arrive outside, and had they known what was happening in the home, they might have charged in guns blazing. Hayes reacted in the most bizarrely cruel way possible to discovering that his partner had assaulted Michaela. Perhaps it made him feel free to do what he'd been wanting to do all along, which was assault Jennifer. Bill had recovered slightly from the head wound over the past few hours, and while his captors were busy tending to their vile, perverted fantasies, he managed to escape through the same unlocked basement door that granted Hayes and Komisarjevsky entry. Komisarjevsky rushed to Hayes while he was assaulting Jennifer to tell him that Bill had escaped, prompting Hayes to strangle Jennifer to death. Bill stumbled into the lawn of his neighbor, David Simsick, who could barely recognize him in his blood-soaked state. That was when first responders on the scene noticed that the house was on fire, and they also spotted Komisarjevsky and Hayes trying to drive off in the family's minivan. Their frantic escape attempt ended moments later when they crashed the car, and they were immediately arrested for murder and various other charges. Komisarjevsky and Hayes both admitted to many of their crimes, but both tried to state that the other person was the true mastermind. Komisarjevsky made the twisted choice to refer to Michaela as KK throughout his interrogation, as if she were a friend of his, rather than a victim of his crime. Eventually, the jury were not only convinced of the guilt of both these offenders, but also that they deserved the death penalty. On behalf of our daughter Jennifer Hawk Pettit, and for Haley Elizabeth Pettit and Michaela Rose Pettit, we say for them that we are pleased with the verdict. We feel that as far as the trial has gone, justice is being served, and we appreciate the support of all the people who have been behind us through this particular time. This case had such a wide impact that it set the movement to abolish the death penalty in Connecticut back by years, but eventually, the state's Supreme Court changed all death sentences to life imprisonment. Hayes and Komisarjevsky are still alive, despite the fact that a judge and jury both believed that they deserved death. Bill Petit survived the incident, though not without scars. He eventually got into politics and even remarried in 2012, but the horrors he faced that night still haunt him to this day. So what do you think of this case? Did Hayes and Komisarjevsky deserve to get the death penalty for their horrific crimes? We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you like the way we create these videos and you want to help bring more cases like this to light, hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives. Thank you once again for watching.